Hello, beautiful people. Welcome or welcome back. I am Andrea B, and I'm tuning in again from the great outdoors, taking advantage of the sun and recovering from a very long, vacation. Not that I traveled, but time off of work. So, soaking in all the time I had off. And the beverage for today is yes, I have my mug again, and I have more coffee in here. This is original roast decaf with hazelnut creamer. So, cheers to you. Now, speaking of the mug and all the time off, as you can see from the title of this video, I will be sharing story time of how my husband and I met, and maybe a very quick story. We'll see. We'll see how long this video is. But we met when I was 9 years old, around that time. And my mom and his mom used to work together, so they had been friends for quite some time. And one day we went to visit their home, and that's when we first met. So, yes, I've known him since I was a kid, and he was a little older, so nothing was happening at that time. And because we were kids, how much could happen for a 9-year-old? I mean, I know there are stories where people fall in love and date when they're kids. It wasn't happening for me, especially for us, because when I say older, I mean 9 years older. So you do the math there. Now, but I noticed him, me being a young girl and seeing an older guy, thinking he's cute and all dreamy and stuff, of course, just like we do with the celebrities on TV and the boy bands, and we usually like those guys. So I noticed him, and that was just it. It wasn't much to. It wasn't. I didn't put much thought into it, basically. And I actually did not know how old he was until I heard his mom say. My mom said, "How old is he?" And his mom said, "He's 32 now." And I said, "Whoa, 32? Yikes, I did not know." So that just shows how long it took for me to realize how old he actually was, and how much older he is than I am. So that's the end of the story. That's how we met. But to give more of the background of how we actually started dating, well, time goes by, I get older, and he says he noticed me getting older when I returned home from college, and so much time had passed from us seeing each other consistently. And he said, boom, you went from little Drea to this grown woman. And he developed feelings for me. I don't know how long it's been, because he likes to keep that part to himself, but it was a lot earlier from when we started dating. So he had this crush. I did not know, but we saw each other, and with our moms being such good friends, they were definitely considered family for me. And that means we would see each other at family barbecues and different, or even just random days where my mom and I would go to their house just to watch movies, and maybe he's there. And it was just that casual. Now, interesting enough, when I actually started to notice him differently, this was, I think, in 2019. And I was in a relationship though, but I just noticed him and paid more attention to his presence. But I didn't have a crush at that time. I was just aware of him being there, and I think I already said it, just paying more attention to him. And we left it at that, or I'll say I left it at that, because I was in a relationship and he actually met that guy because I brought him over, and that relationship ended for me. And then at the time, my husband was in a relationship with his then girlfriend. And so again, nothing is happening. And then that relationship ends for him, but then I was in a new relationship and he met that guy. And so it's funny that I met the last two women he dated, and he met the last two men that I dated. But the timing just never seemed to match for us to be in a relationship. And then he moved. A few years later, he moved, and that was just it. I knew he moved though, but I, of course, did not see him as much. And then I moved 5 hours away from him. I was in Alabama at the time, and that's when my mom and I planned a trip to come down to visit where he and his mom stayed. And, well, I had just gotten out of my last relationship that you've heard me mention quite a few times in other videos. But once that one ended, I was very comfortable with being single. I was prepared to be single for the rest of my life if that meant not dating the same type of guy over and over. That obviously wasn't working for me. So I was very intentional about taking my time to get to know people, not rushing. And when we traveled and went on our trip, I remember it was actually Valentine's Day. We were all on a group call planning out the itinerary for the weekend. And when I got off of that call and remembered my husband was going to be there, I said, what if something blossomed between us? And I just said, I'm open to it. I won't close the opportunity down, but I'm not desperate for anything to blossom. Just going down to have a great time, and we will see what comes of it. Well, that was the trip that solidified where we are today, or was the stepping stone, I guess, because on that trip, and I'll just say K. I don't know if he wants me to disclose his name yet. I didn't ask his permission, but he definitely made it clear that he did not want to be on camera. So that's why he's not here telling his side. But we'll call him K. And where was I going? So, yes, during that trip, Kay tells me that, or before I get to what he told me, he was dropping hints that he was interested. He was definitely flirting. One example, he asked me, "So, how's Alabama?" And I was, "Oh, yeah, it's fine, blah, 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 blah." And then he says, "Are you cooking for anyone down there?" And when I heard that, I didn't get to answer because someone called for his attention and he had to leave. But when I heard and I thought about the question, I said, usually men ask stuff like that because when they say, "Are you cooking for someone?" they usually mean another guy. I'm smart enough to know that much. And then we go to an amusement park and he offers to buy me, oh, excuse me, had a hiccup. He offers to buy me a hat. And not just me, but he bought my mom one. And I'm thinking, okay, he's buying gifts. And sure, it may seem innocent, but I knew he was on to something. And then that same day, we're waiting in line for one of the rides, and he says, "Would you like to go out sometime?" And I just said, "Sure," because I was thinking he meant while we were visiting, and maybe he'd want me to hang out with him and his friends and get to meet them. So I just said, "Sure." And then I said, "When?" And he said, "Oh, I don't know." And so that was just it. Very straightforward that way. Or I guess not so straightforward because he said, "I don't know." But what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, but it was just that. Not. We didn't go into too much detail. But a few minutes later, he says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how annoying am I? And I said, "You're about a 3." And then after that, he says, "Well, I'm sure you've always thought of me as like a big brother or cousin figure, but I don't, this may be obvious to you, but I've had a crush on you for a very, very, very long time." And I'm thinking, no, it was not very clear. I had no idea. And the whole time I'm thinking, he's had a crush on me and we've known each other for so long. He must have been watching me when I didn't notice, and he's probably seen some things that I don't know that he's seen, and I can only imagine. You know, it's different when you have a crush and you're dating someone and you just wonder. You don't want to embarrass yourself, or of course you're going to wonder what they think about you and what different things that they see. And maybe there's some things I didn't want him to see that he noticed about me, but clearly it didn't stop him from wanting to date me. So that conversation, after him expressing that he's had a crush on me, I I don't remember the specifics because it turned into me saying, "I'm definitely open to exploring things with you, and I definitely want to take my time because I had just gotten out of a relationship a couple months ago and just don't want to rush anything." And I remember feeling very, very peaceful and still in that moment. I did not have any doubts or uncertainty. I just felt very open, but also I was actually, after he confessed that he had a crush on me, I was certain that he's the one. But I was still very intentional about not rushing. So, of course, people say that all the time. He's the one and love at first sight. But I I don't know where that feeling came from. But I was very intentional about not living in this delusion or fairy tale, and like I said, just really wanting to take my time. So from that day, we had maybe 2 or 3 more days left in the vacation, and we were subtly spending time with each other without making it too obvious because our moms were there, and we just tried to keep it very low key. And again, he was just so generous enough to offer to pay for things for me, and he said he just wanted to make sure I had a great time on the trip. And the night before we were leaving, he asked for my number, and fast forward, here we are. But of course, I'll tell you this part actually because we were 5 hours apart from each other, so there was a lot of video chatting, and I would drive to see him. He's driven to see me a couple of times, and right before my lease was up that year, I was already considering moving to where I am now. And so I didn't know it would be that soon though. I just thought it would take a little bit longer. But when as my lease was getting ready to end, I told him I was looking at apartments in the area, and then I thought about it and said, what do you think about us living together? And immediately he said, yes, 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 yes. Now, it may have seemed soon to some people, but that goes back to that feeling I said I had where I did not have any doubts, concerns, worries, and because I felt confident about the direction we were going in, I trusted myself enough to know that I was not going into any situation blindly. And although we weren't in a relationship for a long time at that, once I moved, I paid attention to the direction we were going in and the connection we already had, and that was enough for me to say, let's do it. I'm moving in. And I think us knowing each other for so long helped because I know his mom. I know the values that they have and the type of people they are, that I didn't have any doubts about living with him. And let's see, we started dating in March, so April, May, June, July. So moved in just after 4 months of dating. And another reason, or I guess the first reason I will say I decided to make this video after we got married is because I think it holds more weight to say that we got married after everything we've been through. We were not just playing around, but we sealed the deal basically. And I think when I lay out the story, And how it happened, to some people it may seem weird or alarming, but and that's fine. It can still seem weird and alarming even after me going through all the details, and you can say, oh, so what, you're married, that means nothing. But I think it shows that anything is possible. There are so many different routes that people can take. Um, and this is just the route that worked for us. And so that's why I keep emphasizing how confident I felt in our relationship, the connection we had, because if I had any doubts, I would have been very vocal about those, or at least to myself. I would have had to be honest and say, wait, I'm unsure about this. This isn't a good idea. That's why I said in the beginning of the video, after my last relationship, I was very, very, very intentional about not repeating the same mistakes. I did not want to end up in the same situation over and over. So, because I trusted myself, I had no doubts. And because it was new for me, and I just said let's just hope for the best and see what happens. That's all we can do is see. And 3 years later, this is where we are. Not just married, but we've been living together all of this time, and it has been the most amazing experience and the most amazing 3 years of my life. So I have no regrets. I have no doubts still. I have no worries. And that really may be it for story time because it's always funny when people ask us how do we meet. We usually laugh because I'm thinking, long story short, because for most people it may be we met through a friend, we met online, or we met at school. But for us, like, okay, well, yeah, so we met through our moms or best friends, and years ago. So yes, I've known him my whole life, majority of my life, at least. And the reason why, so actually, when we first started dating, I remember being fake mad at him because I said, you had a crush on me all this time and you didn't tell me. I wasted so much time with these other guys, and if I knew you had a crush on me, we could have been together. And I still bring it up to this day just to mess with him. But then I realized, I said, it's not you that my beef is with, it's with God. So now I'm fake mad at God, but that's why I love my relationship with the Lord, because I can joke with him like this, but really I'm like, Lord, you mean to tell me my future husband was right there all along? What in the world? I can't believe that is my story. How many people get to say that? It is just crazy. And I never thought that that would happen for me to say, yep, he's been around all this time. But just knowing how close he was, even before we moved out of state, we were right around the corner from each other. And I didn't know he had a crush on me. I was in a relationship at the time, and it all worked out too for another reason. It worked out the way it did because I would not have been ready for what I have now. I clearly had to get ready. That's why I go back to shedding old habits and things that don't work for me. That has to happen, and it had to happen for me to get here, because if I behave the same way 5 years ago, if I still behave that way today, I probably would not be married. Just being very honest. So I had to let go of all the weight, do a lot of healing and inner work in order to get here. So, yes, we can joke, we can laugh and say, oh, you should have told me sooner. But God knew what He was doing. And that's why I'm really fake mad at God, because He knew it's His plan. He knows what's best for me. So I get it. I truly get it. And I can't change the past, so why be real mad at God for my choices and where I am today, or just the past itself. Why be mad at God for that? Because I had to go through it to build my character and to improve. But guess what? I don't have to go through it ever again because I know better. So, that's story time. That's how I met my wonderful husband, and we actually, I don't know if I said this already, but we just got married over the weekend. So, it hasn't been a week yet, but we are getting there. And I'm excited for what God has in store for us, because we're just getting started as husband and wife, at least. But sometimes we like to reflect and look back at how far we've come, and we have moments where we say, I can't believe it's been you all this time. You've been there all along. And I had one more thought. I can't remember. I cannot remember. I was talking about, being newly married, and just thinking about why I chose to record this video, because it's not just telling you my story, but as I said, wanting people to see that love happens differently, and it's our relationship. So of course we're going to do what works for us. You don't have to do what we do. And that's it, I guess. There seems to be more that I want to say, but for now, I'll have to think about and try to remember. And I guess while I remember, I'll take this time to acknowledge how good it feels out here, and the trees glowing, and how beautiful it sounds. And no, I hate when I forget, because I'm recording, so I want to remember before I stop recording. But I know I can't force it, so you all are being very patient with me as I take these long pauses to remember my thought. And as I like to say, if it's important, I will remember. Don't have to force it, it'll come. But I like to just retrace my steps to see if I can jog my memory. And I think everything that needed to be said has been said. And I think the last thing I was going to add about why I recorded this video is mostly for, again, story time, learning about me, but encouragement for you all, because I'm always talking about love and relationships, and even as a therapist, I've had people question my knowledge being unmarried at the time and saying, "What do you know?" And me being a younger therapist, and again, thinking I don't have enough life experience, but I have enough to go off of, enough to know how a relationship, or at least what a stable relationship for me looks like. And the life experience I have is just what I like to share with people so that you can learn from it as I have learned from it. Take from it what you need to take, and to be encouraged and know that I am not just saying and encouraging people to do all of this for the heck of it. I am living it. That is how I got here. And of course, anyone can get married, but pay attention to what people are saying and pay attention to what they're doing, because I have enough confidence in myself to know that the information I'm sharing works. The proof is in the pudding. The results are speaking for themselves. And my channel is fairly new, so you all are seeing the growth happen along the way. And I'm just so excited to see how much more I will get to share with you all in the upcoming months and years as God continues to bless us. So my motto is always to do what works, because if it works, why change it? And I am only telling you all what works for me and what I see working for other people. And I can also only tell you all what doesn't work for me and what I've seen not working for other people. And so why do it? If it's not working, why do it? Now, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier about waiting to record this video, because I think it speaks volumes to say husband, how I met my husband and how I became a wife, because that is what a lot of women want. That is an aspiration that a lot of women want. So for me to be able to tell my story, I think a lot of women will be drawn to this message and other messages that I share, because I've sealed the deal in a way. So that is my disclaimer, is to just beware of the information and where it's coming from. Like I said, a lot of people are married. How they got there and the quality of their marriage is very telling. Now, if you want a relationship like theirs, do what they're doing. It's just plain and simple. Excuse me. But that's really all I had for this video. And hope you all enjoyed story time. I know it was a little vague in some areas, because there's some things that I like to keep personal and private, like where we live now, and ages. Not that I am ashamed. Not ashamed at all of how old I am. I love it. But, you will find out if you need to find out. But in the meantime, that's all. I think you all got the most important details. But thank you for tuning in. And if you're sick of the marriage talk and the Mrs. Mug, oh, remember I just said we just got married, so I am just getting started. And so if you're sick of it, I don't know what to tell you, because there will be more of this. And I guess one last thing I wanted to add is the, or actually, this may just be a separate video to come about now that I am a wife, because I've noticed some differences already, and I would love to share that with you all. So just stay tuned and like, share, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and turn on notifications so that you can receive updates for when I post again. But until next time, peace out.